The Switch was dated even when it came out back in 2017, and with every passing year, it continues to show its age. So with the new console generation already underway, how does Nintendo continue to draw in so many new customers with its dated hardware? And more importantly, why is this little handheld so important to Japan? By the way, before we continue with the rest of the video, barely any of our viewers are actually subscribed to the channel, so if you're enjoying the content, please consider dropping a sub. To say that the Nintendo Switch is a popular console would be the understatement of the century. This little piece of tech, which is well over 6 years old at this point mind you, has managed to sell over 122 million units since launch, making it one of the best-selling consoles right behind the Nintendo DS and the almighty PlayStation 2. And so far, it doesn't seem like this train is stopping for a destination anytime soon. The Switch is more popular now than it's ever been, and with multiple exclusives still to come, including the long-awaited Metroid Prime 4 and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Nintendo seems to want to milk their cash cow as much as they possibly can. And why wouldn't they? The Nintendo Switch is a worldwide sensation. And the console is perhaps nowhere more popular than the land of its origin, Japan. And so, right off the bat, the million-dollar question is, why is the Switch so popular in Japan? And the answer to that requires a bit of an explanation. First off, the Switch is just charming as all hell, and in many ways truly embodies the promise that all previous handhelds seem to hold. What if we could play incredible-looking games, but on the go? Because, for the longest time, handhelds have always struggled with at least one of the aspects that would typically give a home console its strengths. They were not innovative enough, they didn't have a high enough battery life, and most importantly, they didn't have the computing power to run a lot of modern titles. Nowadays though, that's not always the case. The Switch may not be a graphical powerhouse that can run games at 4K 60 FPS, but it can still run indie darlings like Hades on it no problem. And when I'm done with that, I can just jump straight into a AAA title like Breath of the Wild with the press of a button. The point is, it matters to people that they can have a great piece of hardware that can run these games on the go, and this is nowhere more relevant than Japan. And this is because it's a culture where most people spend a significant amount of their time commuting to and from their offices and schools, and we're not speculating about this either. A 2015 survey by the NHK Culture Research Institute showed that the average working person in Japan spends around 1 hour and 19 minutes daily on public transportation, and when you have to spend so much time waiting to reach your destination, having something like the Switch on hand is a massive boon. But that is not the only reason why the Switch is so popular. Nintendo, the entity, not the company, is a massive national icon. Apart from generating billions in revenue for the country, it occupies a place of extreme significance in Japan, and even the rest of the world by extension. Over the decades, it has been responsible for creating some of the most iconic media IPs of all time, including but not limited to monumental properties like Pokemon, Zelda, and Mario. You can ask any non-gamer you know about any of these, and chances are that they're gonna have at least heard of them. Like, let's be honest, how many gaming brands can you name off the top of your head that have not only come to influence other series for decades to come, but have also single-handedly become global icons? Because Pokemon is one of those IPs, and it is known far and wide as one of the most recognizable franchises of all time. In Japan specifically, there are Pokemon-themed airplanes operated by All Nippon Airways, a massive Pikachu parade occurs every year in the city of Yokohama, and most comically, everyone's favorite Yellow Mouse was even made the cultural ambassador of the city of Osaka in 2017. And when people see such things in their daily lives, it makes them want to indulge in these games so as to not feel left out. It makes them feel like they're participating in a cultural activity that is bigger than themselves, and that's a very unique thing. So yeah, Nintendo has a lot of influence in the culture, and this culture is almost inseparable from the media it's already created, so these games are a way of life for many people, and that in turn also feeds into a marketing loop that benefits Nintendo immensely. Because Nintendo is also perhaps the rare game publisher that also owns a staggering number of system-selling IPs. Many of their major series, again, like Pokemon, Zelda, and Mario, will get millions of people rushing to the store to buy Switches because everyone knows that you can only play these games on Nintendo hardware. All of these franchises are also family-friendly and wholesome for the most part, which is something that a lot of people in Japan tend to prefer. Unlike Western games and their emphasis on realism and grit, most of the games enjoyed in the Land of the Rising Sun are very lighthearted in nature, and the emphasis is not on violence or gore, but on a sense of exploration and wonder. In fact, cultures like Japan even censor things like violence in video games so as to appeal to as broad an audience as possible. And those are all of the exact things that Nintendo does best, and it doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. The company also places a much greater emphasis on innovation over graphical fidelity, and it's still creative after all these years, and willing to take risks that most other big publishers are not. So, they don't need to pump out a new console, they can just keep on going with what they have for a long time, and they know their hardware, and they're gonna squeeze every last ounce of power out of it. And deep down, we all know in our hearts that the next Zelda is going to be phenomenally better than, say, anything Ubisoft has put out in the past 5 years, so fans, both Japanese and otherwise, will keep showing up day one to grab anything that has a Nintendo seal of approval on it. Of course, the reasons for why Japan likes this console so much do not end there. Now, Japan is a society with some of the lowest amounts of inequality. Everywhere else around the world, the differences in income between different types of professions is way higher, which of course means that there are much fewer people in Japan that can burn money on the latest and greatest PCs or even on the more expensive consoles. When it comes to value for money, the Switch is just kind of perfect for the average Japanese gamer. Not only is it a domestically made product, so people are actually supporting their own economy, it's available at the lowest prices in its home country than anywhere else. So unlike a PC or even a traditional console, up front, you're not buying a new TV, you're not buying a sound system, any extra peripherals, just to run the damn games. It's an all-in-one package that really appeals to the average Japanese gamer. Now, this argument for the value for money that the Switch provides is bolstered even further by the global situation around the world. While the Switch is already 40% cheaper than a PS5, $300 versus $500, the truth is that those prices were hardly ever even real when it came to the global shortages, largely because of COVID. When people had the choice to either buy a slightly inflated Switch or dish out $1,000 for a PS5, you best believe that a whole lot of kids out there were waking up to a Switch under the Christmas tree and not an Xbox or a PS5. The Switch is also what Steam is to the modern Western gamer, in that it's a platform that has access to hundreds upon hundreds of different games that are exclusive to the local market as far as the language is concerned. Japanese users have access to a whole section of the eShop that many of us English speakers will never be able to access, and it's there that you can find games that are made exclusively to appeal to the Japanese market. Now, there's still another argument to be made about why the Switch sells so well. It's about the unique positioning of the Switch in a person's lifestyle. It is not a direct competitor to the Xbox or the PS5. The truth is, if you buy a PS5, you are going to be skipping the Xbox, and probably vice versa. But because neither of those two consoles scratch the itch of portability, people who own one of the stationary consoles can still dish out money for a Switch and justify it because it's portable. That is exactly why there's a big overlap between people who have a console and still end up having a Switch. The Switch's ability to avoid the console war is precisely what happens to help it sell so well. So, I think that pretty much covers the secret behind the Nintendo Switch's success in Japan, but that can't be the full picture because I always end up seeing some comments pop up that show us a little bit more of the story, so I'd love to see them coming, and again, thanks for watching.